Okay. Gregory, I'm calling you. Hope you'll see me in a moment. So apologies, the software doesn't keep up with how as a human being can move. The software does its own speed. So Gregory, are you there? I can see you online.
Yes, I am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, you're a bit faint. So just, I think just if you're able to put the volume up or somehow. So dear listeners, just to remind you, this is a spiritual discussion program. And the aim is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is, by their deeds ye shall know them. This is a quote from Jesus from the Bible, and it's in chapter 7 of Mark, verse 15 onwards. So I will be reading that in a moment. Just want to let you know, so Greg, I just want to check with you, how are you doing and how is the weather where you are?
Thanks, one is fine and it's still very cold.
Okay, yes, here too in London it is cold, and of course it's dark right now. Just to say, Greg, your volume was a little bit still low, but hopefully, I don't know if I will just call you back to make sure that it's working fine in a minute, but let's carry on. So, dear listeners, I'm going to start with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Aprushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Aprushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for our discussion tonight is, by their deeds you shall know them. By their deeds you shall know them. This is a quote from Jesus in the Bible, and I want to invite you to join in the show with your questions and comments. You can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one there, .com. And then if you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. So, now just again, the topic is, by their deeds you shall know them. And as usual, I like to look up the meaning of the words in the topic in the dictionary. There are basically two key words here. So the first one is deeds, by their deeds. So the word deeds. In the dictionary, I've got two meanings given to me. The first one is an action that is performed intentionally or consciously. So Gregory, how good is that meaning? That is an deed, the meaning of deeds, an action that is performed intentionally or consciously.
Well, that is helpful, but though it's not complete.
Okay. The second. Let's see if the second meaning helps. I don't think it helps because it's just a legal definition of the word deed, and it says a legal document that is signed and delivered, especially one regarding ownership of property or legal right. I think I'm going to just dismiss that because that's just not anything spiritual in it. So let's leave that out. So, Greg, you said it's not that word definition, an action that is performed intentionally or consciously. It's not quite. It's helpful, but it's not quite enough there. I think you were saying. So, what is missing, or what can we put in there?
Because it is very generic. There is no mention to the thoughts or one's intuition. It's only just one-sided.
Okay. So there's intuition that is not mentioned, as you pointed out. Okay. Anything else apart from the deeds? I think of deeds as well, like obviously the physical action. That is obviously one of them. But is there something? What other things are missing? Let's try to explore that.
I just mentioned the deeds which you are referring to are these physical actions which are recognizable using the 5 earthly senses.
Okay.
There is the other part, one's thoughts. That has not been included. One's intuitions, that has not been included.
Okay, good. Thoughts and intuition is not being included, so I'm just making a note of that. What I'm going to do, Gregory, I'm going to add you back to the call because the volume on your side is still a little bit low. So let me try to bring you back. So
okay.
Let me just going to do that. Yeah. So listeners, while I'm waiting for Gregory to come back, Gregory's now back. Welcome back, Gregory. Okay, just to check the volume. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's still slightly low, but let me see if it's something on my side. That is the issue. I'm just going to increase it on my side just to say maybe it's on my side. Okay, let's continue. what I did next was, in my research, was to, I know Google AI is not something you're supposed to rely on, but it's just an interesting point to look at. So I just decided to do that. So I just searched for the full topic title in Google, and it gave me this. It says, and it was quoting from Matthew, they're saying this is a quote from Matthew chapter 7, verse 16. It says it is a biblical principle teaching a person's true character, intentions, or spiritual nature, whether good or false, is revealed by their actions, behaviors, and outcomes, not just their words. It suggests that, like a tree, a person's inner heart produces visible fruit, behavior. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to read. That's the best thing. Let's go and read where this quote is coming from. The quote is, "By their deeds you shall know them." So let us go there. That is in Matthew chapter 7. I'm going to read from verse 15. Let me just find it before I... Yes, there we go. And it is titled, "A Tree and Its Fruit." "Beware of false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, by their fruit, you will recognize them. Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Let me repeat that. Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of the Father in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" I'm going to stop at that point. So, Gregory, this quote here, actually, it's not using the word deed, it's using the word fruit. So it's the fruit, but the fruit is from the consequence of a deed. So, and then it's through the fruit you actually see whether the deed is good or bad, you can say. So, now Gregory, and Jesus is talking here about false prophets. They come in, there's like wolves wearing sheep's clothing. That's how he begins this proclamation. And we are supposed to beware of that. So yes. But what I'm wondering, Gregory, when, let's say, somebody is a wolf in sheep's clothing, so they're wearing the sheep's clothing, the sheep is like cuddly and looking nice, but we know the wolf is, let's say, maybe setting a trap, or that's the agenda of a wolf. So one will think, let's say, on the surface, when somebody comes across something, a person, looking, let's say, like a sheep in, well, you wouldn't know if he's in wolf underneath it because they're wearing the sheep clothing. on the surface. So, Gregory, how can one sort of prepare, are you meant to be like a suspicious of every person that comes on your path, that they could be there to trick you?
First, thanks. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's a little bit faint, but I will increase the volume on my side. I just hope the listeners can also hear you. I'm just going to do that a little bit more. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the actual phrase is by their fruits, not by their deeds. The fruits basically are the reciprocal, the consequence, the final outcomes of the deed. If the deed, or if the fruits which have now accrued sort of produced a consequence which is uplifting, then you have that scenario where it spreads blessings. If, however, the fruits, which is the final outcome of the deed, if it is not uplifting, if it is not in accordance with these laws of creation, then we recognize these deeds, these fruits, in such a way that we know it is not going to help us to build up, but is going to deaden the receptivity of the individual. And such receptivity which is being deadened is not beneficial. So the emphasis must be placed on the fruits, not basically on the deeds, because the fruits are only final reciprocal activities that have accrued along the line. Therefore, it calls for that state of alertness and vigilance. So when there is a deed, unless one is able to dig himself or herself deeply into it, the individual may not be mobile enough within himself to grasp whether such deeds will be uplifting or not uplifting. If, however, the individual is spiritually alert and vigilant, then immediately is able to know whether the fruits will be uplifting, will be beneficial or not. So it calls much deeper for the human personality to sense what lies behind every deed, because that every deed must be weighed and examined in accordance to these laws through which it itself came into existence.
Thanks, Gregory, for that picture that you've shown us and painted for us. So the real focus should be on the word fruit rather than the deed, because the fruit is the consequence of the deed. So by their fruits you shall know them, rather than the deed, because the deed is the sowing part and then the reaping is the fruit. So in a way, I think the topic tonight, I made a little error there. I should have called the topic tonight, by their fruits you should know them. And that's the real quote, rather than by their deeds. However, you need to do a deed to have a fruit. So it's not how can I say it, disconnected. They are connected. So, okay. And as you mentioned there are the laws of nature that, which make things manifest. So, like I said, by sowing, or in fact, we can call it by doing a deed, you're now going to reap. And obviously, it's according to what you sowed is what you will reap. But as we know, Gregory, there are things that we are sowing in terms of, for example, thoughts and our intentions, which are not that does manifest physically, of course, so that you see that. So that, and then of course, after you've done the deed, there is going to be a consequence of it, and that's what we will see, in reaping it. So yes. Okay. Now, what I want to ask there, Gregory, now, before the fruit has come, so before you could say that you see the fruit, so somebody is doing a deed with their intention or with their thoughts, and then they go forward and make it in a physical way, until what they have, that could be just start of the process, and you may not know until the fruit has materialized, oh, this is what actually the person was doing. So I was wondering, Gregory, is there, I know that we are not psychic, that you can read someone's mind, oh, this is what this person is doing, but is there a way, Gregory, to sense, or to, sort of not exactly in advance, but before the fruit arises, I know I'm sort of jumping a bit, but I just want to understand that, is it possible to know before the fruit arises, that whether it's going to be good or bad? Because why I'm asking that is, if the fruit has now come into, materialized, then the way you respond, it might be like too late. You can't do much about it because the thing is materialized, But if you were, let's say, like I was saying earlier, if you were prepared or you were sensed something was going to, bad was going to happen in this case, let's say, you would know more, you would act in a different way than when you think it was something good that was going to happen. So what I'm asking here, Gregory, the question I'm asking is, can one know before the fruit materializes if somebody's intention or activity is a good one or a bad one?
Your question calls for vigilance in three different aspects. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, fine. I can hear you fine.
The aspect you are concentrating on is that of the physical, through which or in which the individual can utilize the five senses. There is the second one which was mentioned, which is the thoughts. Those thoughts are not visible to the individual. The third part of it, which is the intuition behind these things, are not visible to the individual. But through experience in alertness, experience in vigilance, many a person can even before a physical manifestation of a deed becomes recognizable, even before that, for the individual who has been alert in spirit, that individual is able to perceive the fruit, even in spirit, even in thoughts, before you have a gross material manifestation. For all this only calls for genuine alertness and genuine vigilance. And that is why that admonition was given spiritually, to be watchful. That admonition to watch and pray. That means the individual must be spiritually alert. Being spiritually alert and vigilant always. Many an activity can even be sensed before it manifests. So it is from that point, from that level, that each individual must train themselves. And many a thing can be repelled spiritually before they even come to the senses of an individual and before they manifest themselves physically. So only when that individual is awake spiritually, is awake in thoughts, only then can the individual sort of secure himself or the neighborhood. Only then can it prevent some of these activities from manifesting. When these activities have been prevented from manifesting physically, in which the five senses are then utilized, because they do not manifest physically, you have that the individual is protected from experiencing these things physically.
Thanks, Gregory, for that answer. What you've pointed to is with this ability of the intuition which senses beyond the physical, beyond those five senses, which are physical. So that we have that ability, and that you could say it can pick up, if I can say like this, pick up the vibe. The people say, oh, body language and things like that, but there's this more sensitive ability called the intuition, which is able to pick up like an aura around a person, or yes, you can't read their mind, let's say like maybe, I don't know if a psychic can even do that, but it just senses like that, where the person is standing. So this is, which means we have So thank you for bringing that out as an ability. And as you said, that allows you to, before the physical manifestation of an action or thought or intention, that's what the intuition is capable of picking up. Thanks for bringing that out. Dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Less Radio, And this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, M-E-S-S-A-G-E.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is, by their deeds ye shall know them. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 07939641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. And if you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, the space Grail Message, space the topic of our show tonight, which is, by their deeds you shall know them. And then after the show, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show, also on YouTube. Type the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space by their deeds you shall know them. And of course, you can listen to recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's Z-E-N-O .fm/radio/bless radio 1, that's the number 1. Now, in the news we are hearing a lot of things, let's say scandalous things you can call it, where people have done things in the past and now, maybe 10 or even 20 years later, in a way, either things are revealed through people speaking out or documents and things like that coming out. And then you think, oh, this was kept secret, and then, let's say criminal things were going on, and nothing was done at the time. Maybe it was a mass crime, but it was like only 1 or 2 people paid for the crime, while others were getting away with it, and it seemed to involve, let's say, influential, rich people somehow. So it almost feels, we say, by their deeds you shall know them, or fruits you shall know them. Well, we see the fruits, but then we wonder, what about justice? It's because you don't, life without justice, it's not something, how can I say, we feel happy about or feel at peace with. It's injustice can never leave you in peace. It's troubling. especially their victims who have suffered, and they will feel, oh, justice was not done. And time can pass, 10 years, 20 years, even more than that, sometime when people are not held to account for their crimes. And so that gives a lot of pain. And then when this comes out into the news to the public, there's an uproar there. So my question is, when it is said, by their, let's say, fruits, I won't use the word deeds, by their fruits you shall know them, is there any, in those words, any expression or any sense of justice also? Yes, we recognize people by their deeds and by their fruits. But as I said, it's not satisfying when there is not justice done, for that. I'm talking about, let's say, criminal or evil activity, and one feels that there must be justice done for that. So there's that, there's some unquenchable desire to have justice in there. So, so again, my question, Gregory, is, yes, by their deeds you shall know them, and then you see the fruit, which is evil. Is there also something there to say what can be done to, do we give these people justice, or do we just say, okay, it happened, and accept that happened?
Again, thanks for this particular question. In it, there's this assumption, the assumption of comparing earthly justice with justice with regards to the laws of creation through which all that exists rests. When one talks about, when one is referring to divine justice, that which the individual has placed into creation, the nature of it, is immediately recognizable in spirit. And in reciprocal activities, there will be a settlement. Justice which cannot be shifted. However, how that will manifest on the earthly varies. So you might have that the earthly justice will assign some penance, maybe 1 hour in so-called prison, or 1 year or 5 years, whereas what that individual had done is so horrific. Therefore, one must be very careful in comparing earthly justice with the real justice in nature, in creation. The real justice in creation will return to that individual that which they have dished out to others because they are the authors. If, however, the authors of that fruit which had been sown, of that seed which had been sown, if before it manifests here on earth, if they had in their activities changed themselves for the better, then these reciprocal activities will still come, but there will be some mediation, a mediation which is in accordance with the will, because they have improved themselves, and therefore the impact of that reciprocal activity will be much less. If, however, they have not improved themselves in making amends, then the impact is likely to be much, much worse. However, what you find in earthly justice, many a time, this has been fabricated in accordance with the limitations of the intellect which made these laws. So, on this forum, one is considering real justice, whereas earthly justice many a time has no bearing at all, has no bearing to divine justice. Why? Because the earthly justice only rely on appearances only, whereas the divine justice depends basically on the inner core, the inner kernel of man, where that was initiated. So these are two different kinds of justice. However, here on earth you find that people are only interested in superficial justice, and subsequently you will have that if someone has a smart lawyer, that smart lawyer can always find holes, and the individual gets free, and it is said, oh, there was an error, or these things was not said, and things of that nature. That is not the divine justice that is referred to. So you will find there is a distance between earthly justice and divine justice. Many a time people only look at earthly justice, which basically is no justice, but it's a semblance of justice.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for showing us that there, you could say, like two systems of justice that we are experiencing. One is the earthly, human justice, and then there's the divine one. You can, and what I'm seeing with what you have said is that it's like, yes, there are two systems, so they're independent of each other. Obviously, one is being run by the human beings, and the other one is from the divine. So, and with the human being, let's say there are imperfections and flaws, which means you can't have proper justice, which of course makes it dissatisfying. And also you said it's limited because it works on the earthly level. While the divine one is comprehensive, so on all levels, you can say, on the physical level, on the thought level, on the intuitive level, because those are the things the earthly justice doesn't see. What are you thinking? He doesn't know. And, your intention, he doesn't know. They're just making how can I say, not a presumption, but they look at the physical activity, but that may be hiding the true intention. And maybe they cannot discover that. Sometimes they say, use this phrase, follow the money. So if money, almost like money is the driving force for people to do something. So that is why, and that is how somebody may do it. Well, let's say that may be the case in, let's say, a particular percentage of cases, majority maybe, but there will be other percentage which may not be driven by money. And then if they just use money as a way to say, oh, he did it to get money. Okay, yeah, as I say, 60%, 70% might be the case, but not with the other 30%. So you can see there's some limitation there in the earthly way of administering justice, which is again quite disappointing if I'm honest, when you hear that, these imperfections. So thank you for bringing that out. Now, Gregory, going back, thinking of the divine justice, as I say, it's independent of human sort of system. But just thinking about the time scale of the divine justice, maybe, let's say somebody's a thief and he commits, theft, and he's never caught by the earthly system. Just he's too clever, and he escapes every time. And then we say, well, there's the divine justice that will make sure that the thief will get his just reward. But Gregory, it might not happen in this earth life. Like I said, the person might escape the whole of this earth life, and then he'll die, he or she, and then enter the beyond, and maybe he might get that justice in the beyond. Or even we know about reincarnation, maybe he'll come back and he will get it in the next life. So the time scale is different, Gregory, of the divine justice compared to the earthly one. And that means the victim of that crime may not see the justice being done. So, Gregory, how should one act when, when one sees, let's say, a victim, or even the victim himself sees a crime being done and no justice on the earthly level? We already see that. Are they meant to accept, just like trust in the divine justice, that things will work out? People may not even be aware that there is a divine justice actually happening. So my question there, Gregory, is when something bad has happened and it appears that justice is not being done, at least on the earthly level, should one, how can one come to some peace within themselves that, oh, this will be done, the right thing will be done for the wrong that was done? Is there, is there a particular attitude one must have to stay calm and be, having a trust that life will always, what they say, what do they say? What comes around, there's a word for it which I'm not able to say right now. What happens, it comes around. So I really can't remember the actual words now at the moment. So Gregory, look, my question basically is, what sort of attitude one must have to sort of have peace within oneself when the
ask, is it the attitude externally, or attitude in one's thoughts, or attitude in one's intuition? These are three different categories. Many a time, one will find that in the external, That means that which is perceptible to the five senses. When we are talking of the deeds, many an individual may appear calm, but that doesn't mean in their thoughts they're not reflecting on it, or in their intuitions it hasn't touched them. It may also be that the individual who has remained calm has not got the means to pursue that which he or she wishes to pursue, which has now been classified as a wrong, which they wish to settle. There are many who hold it deep within themselves and keep pursuing the other person until they're able to trap that individual. There are many of these that go around. So the question is, what should be the attitude, the spiritual attitude, the attitude in thoughts, or the attitudes, the external in deeds? It is said that it is better to be proactive. To be proactive in the sense as to develop yourself, not only in deeds, not only in thoughts, but also in one's intuitions, such that many of these unfortunate occurrences can easily be avoided. So do not wait until it strikes you before you prevent it. And that is what Mary referred to as being preventive. Is better than so curing. So don't allow it to manifest. If, however, things have manifested, the individual must take it in to weigh and examine that hurt, that suffering that it has gone through, in order to learn from it, so as to prepare oneself to ensure such may easily be avoided and is taken as a lesson, not only in deeds, but also in one's thoughts and in one's intuition. Only from such an attitude can you have that vigilance, that alertness that the individual needs. So that which was, which was meted out to you, in which it did some damage deep within you, because of your attitude, has been turned the other way around. You have learned from it. Like a farmer who goes to the farm to plant some crops, and there was failure. Having learned the necessary lesson, it will be more alert and vigilant to the environment, to what is happening everywhere, to know when and how to respond to challenges, such that the reciprocal due to vigilance and alertness will be helpful, will be of benefit to the individual. On the other hand, one must ask oneself, what profit does the individual derive when such is held for such a long time, instead of learning the necessary lesson and be very much alert to the state that many a thing can be prevented, not only on the individuals, but also on others. If you have an individual that has suffered due to the activities of others, it is the duty, it is the task of that individual to open up and to purify his or her environment and send good thoughts to others, such that others need not go through such punishing experiences. By doing that, his or her environment will be so well permeated. Such permittivity will allow that individual to rise. That is a lesson which each individual must have within itself. On the other hand, it is possible, depending on the resources at his or her disposal, to pursue where it will want to recoup, in quotes, that which it has lost. But each individual must make that decision, how they respond to these challenges.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. There were a lot of points you were making there, and covering there, with regards to the attitude. It's on 3 levels, or you could say material attitude, or thoughts attitude, and then the spiritual attitude. And I know we've mentioned there these 3 levels of working in the past as well, but it may not be like in front of our consciousness when we are looking at some troubles or issues that we're dealing with. Yes, we are on the physical world, and so we see things easily on the physical, but what about the other worlds, the thoughts and the intuitive ones, which all have an impact? So thank you for bringing that out. That was very, how can I say, helpful. And actually, while you were talking there, Gregory, a listener sent me a message about the words I couldn't come out with, which is, what goes around comes around. That was the phrase I was looking for. What goes around comes around. Like a cycle there. So, yeah. But the main point, Gregory, what you were pointing to, this attitude is that yes, we do go through challenges, and it can be frustrating. It seems sometimes the world is against us, but that is only one level. We need to fight not only on the material level, like you say, it's not just about, they say prevention is better than cure. That was the quote that you were making. Well, if prevention is better than cure, then how do we prevent? Well, you can act in the material level, you can act on the thoughts level, and you can act on a spiritual level, the intuitive level. So these are like, if I can use the word in quotes, weapons in our armory that we are meant to apply when tackling, our life issues. So we need to work on those 3 levels. So thank you for that. Now, dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'm going to spell that. www.grail, that's Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is by their deeds, or the real proper word would be fruits, by their deeds or fruits you shall know them, which is a quote from Jesus. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. If you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space by their deeds you shall know them. By their deeds you shall know them. And that's to listen to the live show. And after the show finishes at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording also on YouTube. Again, writing the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space by their deeds you shall know them. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, when we are, let's say, coming from a particular background, let's say, let's say you come in quotes from a poor background and you become a footballer, like a star. So you now come into big money, which you never had before. Of course, one of the things will be to handle that money, of course, and I'm sure there will be people advising around you. But then they say money can change a person. So let's say you had in quotes, a good character and morals, and then because of this money, you can now do more things, and even you let's say, have other people around you who influence you, and maybe you get into do something bad. Let's say it has been known, I don't want to say this is in general, but let's say we go to a club and maybe abuse some girl there, most of the footballers are male stars that we are aware, and they might do that. This is just a scenario I'm picking up, not that I'm trying to pick it as that's a general thing that happens. So let's say that has happened and money has been involved in influencing, or even has brought you with a company of people who might be, let's say, not of a good behavior, and you do that, so you get in, let's say, and that can cause trouble, obviously, for that footballer, in this case that I'm talking about. As I say, I'm talking in general, really, but the question I'm asking, Gregory, is can money change a person's character, personality, behavior, which was not, let's say, going to happen if that money wasn't there before? Obviously, they wouldn't be able to do things with the money when they didn't have the money. But the real question is, Gregory, can the money influence the behavior of a person such that he's not, it's like, it is not that person anymore, how can I say, making he's too much influenced by the money and the company rather than if he was on his own or with in his previous background when it was not so well off.
There are many examples which abide of people who in their original background had nothing. Again, that is wrong, because you will find that in the general discussion, the measures which are used in earthly activities are basically that of materiality. Skills may be considered, but not very strongly. When it comes to spirituality, money is not used. I mean, it's not, basically you don't use money in spirit, in the spiritual realm. It is the character, the spiritual maturity which the human being, with the human spirit, it is that which it has cultivated that it uses to deal with the challenges which it comes across. Therefore, you will find that if that individual, through its background, had so matured to understand how this resource, this earthly resource may be utilized, it will utilize it in such a way that it will bring benefit to many. If, however, that individual is not matured enough to know how to use that particular earthly resource, of course, it would hold it back for itself and itself only. But for harmony to prevail here or hereafter, it must be one for all and all for one. So many who have the resources, not only money, there are some who are in positions of authority who keep abusing them because they think they do not need to harmonize with the society in such a way as to bring them benefit. So be it money or position or whatever you care to call it, the individual behavior is dependent on its spiritual maturity and not at the whims and caprices of the resource which is now referred to as money.
Thanks, Gregory. For the
Hello?
Oh, sorry, Gregory. I was talking and not knowing that I was on mute. Apologies, listeners. Yes, thank you, Gregory, for this answer. In what you're, the driving force for a human being is not meant to be money or material things. Your character, it's coming from a spiritual back. You could say the real influence should be spiritual, not the material. What I'm wondering, Gregory, because obviously when you are born, you're brought up by your parents in most cases, okay, and they teach you, let's say, morality, or let's say even your belief maybe. They bring you up and train you, let's say, in a particular way, you know, and that builds your character, okay? And then when you become adult, you're supposed to be free to choose your own direction. So, you know, the example I was, or the question I was asking previously, okay, before you didn't have money, then you now had big money. Now it's shifted, somehow your character changed from, in quotes, a good one to a bad one, or at least in some area it shifted to a bad one. And the money was influencing in that thing. So, and of course, the person wasn't that way in the beginning, because the parents, as a child, he was trained, you know, with good behavior. Somehow, as an adult, he shifted. So my question then, Gregory, is, you know, as you get older, you get set in your ways, or at least that's what people say. You know, and even your environment, you know, so that means, when I say environment, it's really mainly to do with the people you associate with, you know. Of course, it also affects you. And then what I'm pointing to, Gregory, when you get to an adult, compared to a child is always ready to learn, let's say. They're excited to learn, and that is almost their journey. When you get to adulthood, it seems, because you have become a bit set in your ways, to change, so is not so easy. And I'm thinking, and you know, you can't tell an adult like you can tell a child, don't do this, don't do that. Or you can tell the adult, but adult is still free, you know, to go about whichever way he wishes to go about. So my question is, Gregory, and once you're an adult or much older, can a person be changed? You know, because as I said, the person thinks for himself now, and he doesn't need to listen to his fellow people around him. So is it harder, Gregory, when you're a bit older to change?
Your question assumes many things that individuals say in the communities. However, it is said, it is not what goes into us that defines us, but what comes out of us. What comes out of the individual expresses its maturity, whether you call it spiritual maturity or psychic maturity. So you have that on the one hand, as a child, that individual was taking things in, listening, whether they bore fruit or not, that will have to be proven in time. Again, it depends on what the teachers, be it the parents or school or whatever, or society, it depends on what that individual has been able to assimilate. But assimilating certain impressions from the outside is only one part of it. That which comes from the outside must be weighed, must be examined. That many parents do not teach. That is what some most of the time the society do not teach. It is expected that you just take it in. That is not being alive. Whatever approaches the individual as an external impression must be taken in to be weighed and examined in thoughts, to be weighed and examined with one's intuition. Only in that process will the individual now have a basis to move out courageously in order to face the battles, to face further battles. So when you hear the thoughts, oh, the person is now an adult and is finds it difficult to learn, that is never true. For if you take the example that you put so-called a pot of money out there and say, okay, in order to win this money, you need to do A, B, C, D. Whether the person is 80 or 90, no matter how old, they will do everything they can to make sure they overcome the challenges to get there. Because they know they need such. Since the society relies on the so-called money. So it depends on the bait which has been presented before them. It is not only in material things, in many other things. Only he or she who dares to challenge what is already there. To challenge it means to weigh it and to examine it, not only in deeds, not only in thoughts, but also in one's intuition. Only that individual in reciprocal activity will find an answer. Else, that which has accosted it may overcome the individual. So it is the reciprocal action, the reciprocal activity that has accrued through what one has taken in. That is what really counts, not what people say out there. For those who make progress are those who normally challenge the assumptions which have been placed out there. You must look at the assumption and see, can this assumption be improved? On that, there is no age limit.
Thank you, Gregory, for this, again, the answer and points you have made. Age is there's no age limit, like you point out. In a way, that there's a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. So one must, and the real thing I think is, we used previously the word attitude. So now we're talking about the will, and that shows, okay, there's something deeper. So when we talk about change, yes, again, we can look at it on the three levels. There's the material change, okay, yes, but that's not the only one. Then we have our thoughts, that can also change. And then there's our, spiritual I don't know word to use, maybe attitude, that can also change. And that is so all these levels we are working in. And I remember, Gregory, you've said before, somebody could be doing physically an action, everybody can see that, but the intention could be completely opposing that, and you wouldn't see that. They do something, but they actually don't, they mean to do, actually the intention is the opposite of that action. So you wouldn't see that if you're only looking on the physical level. However, if you're tuned in intuitively, you will see, the person actually is not really wanting to do that. He's just wanting to show off, to pretend that that's what, well, he wouldn't let us know that he's pretending, but that's what actually he's doing.
Actually, if I may come in,
yes,
one may not look at these things in a one-sided fashion. For when a human personality has a challenge, say is involved in a battle with some other, and that individual finds that it hasn't got as much resources, it might set up snares to distract the opposing forces. This is perfectly natural because the individual wishes to survive, and it looks at its own resources and it says, look, I have to set up snares such that the individual may follow those snares so that it can escape. But one thing is very clear. His thoughts and his deeds are at variance. But that doesn't mean the volition behind it is not in accordance with the laws of creation.
Thank you very much for that, Gregory, because what you've just said there tells me, I know this is a sports example, so let's say in cricket, this is like a historical thing in a way, there are certain nations which are very strong in cricket, and then there are other nations which are new to cricket, but they're developing and they're growing. So they're not strong right now. As they play more games, they get better, they learn, okay? They don't have the big resources, but they're still learning and growing. And then you see, when you look at some of these games, the weaker team, so-called weaker team, eventually beats the stronger team. You see it happening. And then, okay, let's say they play 10 games against each other. Normally the stronger team will win 9 out of 10 or maybe 8 out of 10, okay? But over time, that's what you're pointing to, the weaker team, so-called weaker team, will get stronger, and then they might win 4 out of 10. They might still lose in total, but they could win 4 out of 10 rather than lose like they would do, or win only 2 out of 10 before. So it takes time, and then one day they become strong, not exactly maybe equal to the strongest one, but close to them, and then you could say, all right, and that is time, and that they have become stronger. But if you only looked at the time of the early years, you'll say, oh no, this is a useless team, no chance they can do anything. So that's, we must, and I know, Greg, you've mentioned before, things are mobile. You don't think, oh, that's how it is today, it'll always be like that tomorrow, and for 10 years like this. No, it might take 10 years, but it's not about the timing, when exactly they reach to strength. It's what the point is, they need to reach to the strength. So, and whatever effort is required to get there, so be it, And even the stronger teams can become weak or weaker over time. We've seen that. They can be strong for 5 years, and then after that, the people have changed, or they are not as strong as, for whatever reason, they're not anymore strong. And then the other teams can beat those teams, the stronger, so-called stronger team. So it's mobile. It's a really, and it's again, Gregory, like you're pointing to, it's according to their striving or volition or, determination, whatever the word we use for it. That's what's driving these activities. So yes, we need to take all that into account. So you mentioned about resources and all that. Yes, at the beginning you don't have much resources, but as you get stronger, you get the resources. So don't have to put yourself in a prison or cage and say, no, I cannot do it. There's the way, as I say, where there's a will, there is a way. So thank you for that. Yes, I just want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. UK time to 8 p.m. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is by the know them. By their deeds or slash fruits, you will know them. That's a quote of Jesus from the Bible. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one there, space Grail Message, space by their deeds you shall know them. And after the show, you can listen to a recording of this show on YouTube, and is writing the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number one there, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is by their deeds you shall know them. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that is ZENO.FM / Bless Radio. Let me correct that. So Zeno is ZENO.FM / radio / Bless Radio 1, and that's the number one there. Now, let me continue the reading from the Bible where Jesus was speaking about by their deeds or by their fruits you shall know them. I'm actually going to read again from the beginning, or where we had the quote of that quote. So this is from Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 to verses 29, to the end of the chapter. and it is titled True and False Prophets. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who has built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority, and not as their teachers of the law. Now, Gregory, when we hear this, the words of Jesus here, he's teaching us, you could be aware of evildoers, or these people who are trying to deceive, let's say. It's like putting that is giving us a warning, and so that's a good thing. Like you said, that's being vigilant, because yes, they are. We're not. It's not everybody's a good person. There can be people out to deceive, and if we are not alert, we will fall there. So he gave us that warning, which is fine. Then he continued and he said, Lord, Lord, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform any miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. So Gregory, that one, it looks like people say words, but these are like empty words, not really genuine. Although when you read it, you're thinking, let's say there might be somebody genuine who says also Lord, Lord, but that is not said there is he's evil or not. It's so anyway. What I want to go there ask on this one, Gregory, is Jesus is expecting something from us or warning us how to be. So, however, he doesn't mention, Gregory, intuition, and he doesn't tell us like the way you have said certain things, like our attitude and so on. He's speaking just in this language that I'm reading to you, So my question is, what is expected from us human beings, when Jesus speaks like this? Because let's say, are we meant to read between the lines, if I can say like that, and make sense of what Jesus is saying? Because sometimes he doesn't, if you just read it only like without any further, how can I say, words there being said, you are supposed to get an answer from it. And I can say, if you didn't, it's almost like what I'm saying, Gregory, unless you knew the answer from the beginning, you might not be able to follow what Jesus is saying. So is there something, Jesus, when he speaks, is there something he's expecting from us?
Of course, in all of his expressions, there are expectations. That they prompt some expectations which is within the capability of the human spirit. And such expectations are that of resonance, which resonance is the same thing as in accordance with the laws of creation, that of the attraction of homogeneous species. For the vibrations which lie in creation, for the individual to be able to make use of those beneficial vibrations which spreads out in creation from on high, that individual must make the necessary effort to vibrate in resonance, to be able to attract that power and to make use of it in such a way that it will bring benefit not only to the individual but also to others. That is the will that he's referring to. Therefore, but for those people who only speak of it, and yet it is not in their activities, it's not in their thought activities, in that scenario they deceive themselves, not others, because they wish to take from others what does not belong to them, and they find different words for it. However, for those who swing in their word, who are touched by the activities of Jesus at that time, they will strive to live in accordance with what he has given to them, and in such a way you will find they will be fulfilling the will of the Almighty. In all of his examples, even the very famous or popular one when he says to love your neighbor as yourself, and he didn't stop there, they went on to ask further, and who is my neighbor? He didn't say this one is a neighbor, this one is a neighbor. He gave another example. And in another example, he said, the scenario where someone was in need, and being in need, a priest came and went sideways. A Levite came and went the other way. Then came the Samaritan, which was later on classified as a good Samaritan, who did this ABC. That Samaritan was or is the individual who, sensing the needs of another, used the resources which has been granted to him to alleviate the suffering of others. In that case, that which you refer to as love, strictly speaking, in accordance with the laws of creation, that word love can be represented by welfare, just as the Samaritan did to the person he didn't even know at all. So, for the individual who lives not only for himself, but also for the welfare of others. So we take away that expression love and replace it with the welfare of others. Whether those others mean they are from the same hometown or from different hometowns, the same tribe or not, different, same race or not, immaterial. He said, to the extent to which he means, of these three, who is the neighbor? So you find that the way Jesus speaks is such that to prompt something from the individual, so that the individual will examine and weigh for himself and say, truly, this one is one's neighbor. And then finally he said, go thee and do likewise. That should be the inner attitude of any individual who wishes to receive of the blessings, who will then make use of these blessings to subsequently on his neighborhood. By neighborhood, one is referring to all that exists outside of him, which could be animals, which could be the fields, which could be the dales, be fellow human spirits. So basically, what he is referring to in that particular scenario is he or she who receives must make use of it and pass it to others. That is the law. To be able to receive, you have to resonate. And in resonance, you are able to receive fully, and also in resonance, you are able to identify he or she who needs it and pass it to the person. That is what he was referring to.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for these examples and words of Jesus, pointing to us human beings as to how we are supposed to live and, fulfill the will of the Almighty. Now, Gregory, I know we mentioned many times in our shows about the laws of creation or nature, but I would like to ask again if you can please give us these laws again, because that is what is, how can I say, expected or demanded by God, and even Jesus has said it, that this is how we are supposed to live, by these laws. We're used to talking about earthly law, but really, the real law that we are supposed to follow is these laws of nature or creation, or even divine law is another way it is said. So please, could you tell us these laws?
Actually, one had already started with that which was mentioned in the past question, immediate past question, in which it said, he or she who must make use of it and pass it on. And in that particular scenario, that individual makes room to be able to receive further. So in reciprocal activity, as the individual has given, so is that individual able to receive. We now have the so-called law of reciprocal activity. That law of reciprocal activity is key to, or is one of the basic laws in all of creation. Again, one had mentioned that to be able to receive, one must resonate. That means you must have a similar vibration or an equivalent vibration. That particular scenario is what one may call an attraction. For to be able to receive, that means you're able to attract. And this attraction is only valid when you have similarity. So we have now the law of attraction of homogeneity, of homogeneous species. By homogeneous species, the individual must consider the kind, similar kinds or homogeneous kinds, they come together. If that were not the case, the individual could never have received, just as we are discussing now, in which our discussion is propagated in waves. And only those who have the instrument to be able to receive that, like you have in radios, you have receivers. For them to be able to receive, you must have the scenario of similar vibrations. So they tune in. That is resonance, that is homogeneity. So we have the law of attraction of homogeneous species. So the first one in which we have reciprocal activities, the second one which is the attraction of homogeneity, then there is the other one in which that which is denser sinks, whereas that which is lighter rises. That's many may refer to as spiritual gravitation. That which is referred to as gravitation does not only manifest in physical activities, but also in non-physical activities, where many times if you do that which is of benefit to your neighbor, benefit to many, you feel lighter. Whereas if you do that which is ignoble, you feel heavier. These are not just mere sins, but they form the cornerstone of all activities in creation, be they that which is material or non-material. But for a deeper understanding of how these things are, the individual is invited to examine the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message of Abraham. Therein, the individual may now weigh and examine that which he or she is confronted with in order to have a deeper understanding and therefore make their decisions in moving forward.
These words, of course, about the laws of creation, and as you say, if you want to know in really a proper detailed understanding of it, you need to pick up the Grail Message. I'm going to give you the website in a moment. I want to first now read the words from the Grail Message, and just to say that we have come to the end of the show tonight, so I hope you have enjoyed our discussion on the topic of by their deeds, or better said, fruits, you shall know them. By their deeds or fruits, you shall know them. A quote from Jesus. So I'm now going to read which is the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled, For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction. and conviction come solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abdushin. Dear listeners, if you want to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Well, wishing listeners a very beautiful week ahead.
Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. And we'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another new topic. Take care.